Okay, everyone has a sheet, so very good. Let's pray, and we'll get started with this meeting. Father, we are excited to be in your service. Sometimes it's daunting to be the kind of church, the kind of Christians you've called us to be. We know that there are challenges that come with this, and we've certainly seen some. We recognize also that we probably haven't seen them all, that the challenges will continue because we continue to have an enemy and live in a very wicked place, a wicked world, and that actually makes us stand out, and we know that. And so we ask at the same time for faithfulness to your calling, but also that we can respond to the overwhelming need that we are seeing and the community around us, and that you would bless our efforts and open the doors that you want open. We'll give you the glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Let me just sort of give you a little bit of an overview. I like these kinds of meetings because I'm just going to turn it over to Brandy. And for the most part, and let her take over. She's the one who's prepared most of this information. But let me just give you a little bit of an overview. One of the things that we wanted to do is to keep you as the congregation of New Hope informed with what is going on in the school, the condition of the school, the particular needs of the school, and the needs of the community that we live in. As most of you know, the world seems to be becoming unhinged. Society is breaking down in ways that I've never seen it in my lifetime. Institutions that we always thought would be in place are crumbling before our very eyes. Even very fundamental things like whether you're male or female. I mean, all of a sudden, that's in question. And not only is it in question, it is being taught to preschoolers. It is being taught to children, are being indoctrinated in the school system around us, which is in crisis. Those of you who work in the public school system, if there are those, you know that the NEA has already stated that they're going to probably lose half their teachers coming up. Disciplinary problems in the classroom cited as one of the major reasons. The importance and the need that is going to be placed on solid academic Christian schools is overwhelming. We're already experiencing it, and I'll let Ms. Brandy speak to that because she's the one on the front lines of it. But we know that the Lord has called us to a very special ministry here in South Florida in our community, one where we reach out into the community, where we teach children about Jesus, where we have a school that our primary function is to introduce them to the gospel and to Jesus Christ. All of our education, and again, I'll let Ms. Brandy speak more to this, but all of our education is slated towards God's real world, the real world that we live in. And if you take God out of the real world, you don't have a real world. And so therefore, your education is incomplete. And our educational process is to teach children not only what they need to be successful, but also to teach them that this is indeed God's world and that they must navigate it with God in mind in order to be successful in the world in a spiritual sense. So we have a massive calling. We have more children right now than we can possibly accommodate. So therefore, we have to do something. And that's pretty much what this morning is about. I want you all to know what our plans are. Do not think that we have the answers, because we don't. But we have never actually had a time that I can remember where we have gathered you together and said, this is where we are. We need your prayers. We need your support. We need you engaged and involved in whatever way that the Lord puts before us. So with that sort of as a very broad overview, you know Miss Brandy. I know I'm supposed to call her Miss Andrews in the school because that's what they do, but I always call you Miss Brandy. She's the driver, the one who we would not be here with the kind of school that we have if it were not for her. Since she first started here 15 years ago, is it now, that you've been here? She has continually been the one. She has this sort of method of working things. She never really comes out and says, this is what I want to do and this is what I want to do. She just kind of slides it in the middle of a meeting, you know. We're going to, our license now takes infants. Oh, really? Well, why do we want to do that? Well, it explains it. Now we're going to go beyond in VPK, and now we're going to do a little kindergarten. Oh, that's nice. And all of a sudden, and each time I think she's joking because each time it's like, where are we going to put them? We have no space. Well, again, a master juggler who has found a way to not only teach these children, but to teach them in a quality way, both academically and spiritually. So we are blessed by you, Brandy. I don't give you near enough accolades. I know it embarrasses you, but I enjoy embarrassing people. So I'll turn it over to you and let you take over.
My name is Brandy Andrews. I am a member of this New Hope Community Church congregation, and I have had the opportunity to work here at the school since 2007, so 15 years. I want to start by giving you just a brief history, a little overview of how this little school came to be. In 1974, New Hope Community Church completed the construction on this facility, this building that we worship in today. 3 years later, in 1977, God gave Bonnie Banstra and this church a heart and a vision for a preschool ministry. And it was at that time that God's Little Creations preschool was born. Although the original student body consisted of only 12 children between the ages of 2 and 4 years old, the school quickly prospered. From 1990 to 1994, Miss Sue Timmer, who many of you may know is Bob Timmer's mother, served as the preschool director, and during this time, the preschool nearly tripled in size. So it went from 12 students to 35 students. And in 1994 to 2007, Miss Carla Cassio served as the preschool director, and the preschool ministry continued to flourish. In April of 2004, Pastor Kirby became the senior pastor here at New Hope. He had experience in Christian education, and he was convinced that Christian schools provided one of the best ways for a small church like ours to impact its community for Christ. 3 years later, in December of 2007, I had the privilege of coming on board here at New Hope. We had 42 full-time students at that time between the ages of 2 and 4 years old, and we had 6 full-time teachers. In 2009, we obtained our licensure from the Department of Children and Families to add infants and 1-year-olds to our program. In 2013, we obtained approval from the Florida Department of Education to officially launch New Hope Christian School. It was our lofty intention at that time to serve kindergarten through 5th grade students. We truly stepped out in faith. That first year, our kindergarten class had 3 kids, 3 students. We weren't even making ends meet paying the teacher with the tuition that was coming in for those 3 kids. But we truly believed that that was what the Lord was calling us to at that time, so we moved ahead. Today, well, let me first say last night, Friday night, was our graduation for our VPK and our kindergarten students. So in 2013, we had 3 kindergartners. Friday night, we graduated 60 kids, 4 and 5-year-olds, 60 children. Today, we currently have a staff of 30 full-time employees. We serve 213 kids on this campus from infants to 8th grade. I often wonder if those few faithful women way back in 1977 had any idea the way the Lord would multiply their faithfulness to the calling that he had laid before them. And just how many thousands of children have been instructed in the ways of God here over the last 46 years because they answered the call. We have humbly watched the Lord bless and grow our educational program. There are some members of this congregation that can attest to the school's long legacy in this community. And I would like to invite Miss Linda Matejcek to come up and share her experience with you, which goes back nearly 40 years.
I'm not good at this, so I'm reading. My first experience with our school was 40 years ago, this fall, when I enrolled my son Chad in God's Little Creation preschool. As I remember it, he was taught Bible lessons, songs, and the alphabet. 35 years later, when it was time for his daughter to go to preschool, we decided this was the best school for her. VPK was added to the curriculum. It always was good, but with each addition, it gets better and better. As I said, things changed. When Chad attended, Sue Timmer and Bonnie Banster were in charge. When Avery started, it was Carla Cassio. I, too, am grateful for the faithfulness of these women who carried our school on. And it just amazes me, as you're saying, these years, how in 1982, Chad came here, and Avery was here, I guess, in 2006, because she was here before you came. So I just see such wonderful things. But under the leadership of Pastor Kirby, we had another change to our preschool director. Miss Brandy came on the scene. With Miss Brandy and Pastor Kirby at the helm, things took a turn for the better. Their commitment, determination, professionalism, creativity changed the aspect of our school. I look back and I am amazed at how our school has exploded with students and dedicated teachers. It gives me great joy when I come to hear a school program that's filled with the love of Christ and the gospel is presented. And I want to tell you, the gospel is presented from the beginning to the end. It's amazing. I went to another preschool graduation at a local church that is well known, and the songs were sung and little Bible verses were said, but it was a world of a difference. I'm just so proud of what you have done. I really am. We have a gift to offer the outside world, those that believe and those that don't believe in Christ. I am a real supporter of what we can do in the future of those who God will bring. I am praying that the Lord will continue to open the doors for our school to grow. Thank you.
As the Lord continued to bring more and more families here, space became a significant challenge, and we had to be creative over the years to make it work. The music department has graciously given over the dedicated choir room, which now is home to 12 one-year-olds, Monday through Friday. The fellowship hall doubles in the day as K-4 classrooms and a school cafeteria. The council room is also the school library, And I've even attempted to bargain for Pastor Kirby's office a few times. So far, that one hasn't come to fruition. That's a way that you could pray, though. As many of you know, shared space means that many of our classrooms have to be broken down completely at the end of the day for functions that the church will have that evening, then set back up again late that evening to be ready for school the next morning. Many of you in this room have moved table after table after table after table to make this happen. Our church and our school have been working together for years to accommodate our space constraints. In 2014, we installed our first portable. In 2015, our second portable arrived. And in 2016, portable number 3 was delivered. These 3 portables gave us an additional 6 classrooms, which helped to allow us to continue serving the families in this community. In the midst of the portable projects, we began praying and planning for the future development of an educational campus consisting of 3 permanent buildings here on this property. We had the opportunity to work with a phenomenal architect who really brought our ideas to life in the renderings that many of you have seen hanging in the lobby. Between 2014 and 2018, we successfully completed the architectural drawings, received approval from the Development Review Committee of the City of Fort Lauderdale, received approval from the Building and Zoning Departments of the City of Fort Lauderdale. We officially had the property platted with Broward County, and all the while our school kept growing and growing. I can't help but think about the book of Matthew and the parable of the talents, when the master says, "You have been faithful over a little, I will set you over much." This church has truly been faithful to God's call to minister to this community through Christian education. And those of us here are watching the Lord multiply. It wasn't long before we again had more students than space. So here we are in 2019, wondering where we're going to put all of these children that the Lord has brought to this place. Our long-term plans were going to cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $12 to $15 million to build those 3 buildings on this property. Not to mention the 3 buildings that we designed way back in 2014 were large enough to house infants through 6th grade. That would be their capacity. So we again were looking for a temporary solution to the space challenges we were facing, or we were going to have to make the decision to start turning children and families away. We looked at renting off-site space, but couldn't find anything zoned for our use nearby. We reached out to Calvary about the property next door, which we learned was in total disrepair. Eventually, we decided to purchase another modular unit that would give us an additional 6 classrooms. The multiplex was delivered to this property September 30th of 2020. I could write a book narrating the challenges that we have faced getting that building up and running. All that to say, we are still actively working to that end. Each and every time the city and the county requires something additional, we comply only to find out that there is one more thing, and the cycle just continues. It's been nearly 2 years. I'm in constant contact with the engineers weekly. We're continuing to do our part to satisfy the city of Fort Lauderdale and Broward County, but what do we do in the meantime? The fall of this current school year, talking about the previous August, was quickly approaching, and we were short 4 classrooms for the students enrolled. There was no physical space left to teach 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th grade. We literally had more students enrolled than we had classrooms to accommodate. We reached out to several local churches in our neighborhood to see if renting space from them would be an option. We looked at property that was close by for sale, but nothing seemed to fit. We continued to pray and seek the Lord's guidance. Praise the Lord, He delivered in a way that only God could. And Calvary agreed to loan us 3 classrooms in their gym building next door. We were moving furniture into those classrooms days before the school year began, just a few days. And our 4th to 8th grade students are currently being taught by our middle school team across the field in Calvary's gym. Although Calvary has been very gracious to us, they are currently space challenged themselves, and they will need those classrooms back at the end of this school year. Literally, this Wednesday is our last day of school, and this Friday we will be moving the furniture back out of the Calvary classrooms here to be stored on our property, with no prospect of having the multiplex open for the start of the school year, which is August 22nd. So that's a little bit about our expansion thus far, and I want to now talk a little bit about our financial strength and the stewardship of our resources. New Hope Christian School has been continuously operating in this community since 1977. For over 15 years, the school has showed substantial growth in student population and also in annual revenue. Even though the last 2 decades have brought some substantial financial challenges to South Florida, our school has not only weathered the financial storms, but it has grown and expanded in the midst of them. During the economic downturn of 2008 to 2015, and most recently through the 2020 COVID crisis, our school has been able to steadily increase enrollment, increase revenue, fund multiple expansion projects here on the property. To date, our total out-of-pocket investment in the expansion of our school facility exceeds $641,000, and that does not count the actual cost of the portables. And that's since 2014. Over the last 5 years, we've shown substantial, consistent, and stable growth, increasing our revenue by over $100,000 per year. And just to give you an idea, these figures should be listed on the paper that we handed out. 2014 school year, we had a total revenue of just over $601,000. 2017, we were at $711,000. 2019, $925,000. This school year, as of the close of August, we're at $1.3 million, and our budget year doesn't end until the end of June. We are stewarding the money that God brings in to provide exceptional Christian education to the students, minister to the families that He has sent here, and to plan for our future and continued outreach to this community. So all this to say, as we move forward and discuss the opportunity that is before us, I want you to be confident that the school is financially stable and stewarding its resources in a manner that honors the Lord. As you may or may not know, our school is non-covenantal. And what does that mean? Non-covenantal means that parents do not have to be a member of a church. They don't have to profess faith or belief in Jesus Christ or have any religious affiliation at all for their children to be eligible to attend our school. We are non-covenantal because the faculty of this school, our pastor, and this congregation believes in being on mission, not only across the globe, but here in our own backyard, here in our neighborhood. It is our goal to invest in the lives of these children and their families, to instill a love and an understanding of God's word so that they may experience the life-transforming gospel of Jesus Christ, just as those sitting in this room have. Most of these children are coming from broken homes, single-parent households. Some are being raised by their grandparents. A third of our preschool students are in foster care currently, and many of them have learning difficulties or have suffered some type of mental or emotional trauma. These kids that the Lord brings here are what the world would deem the least of these. They are the kids that most other Christian schools in our community turn away because they don't draw the statistics. They don't provide fancy numbers to boast about. They aren't the cream of the crop. Let me be clear. The 98% college acceptance rate is not what the Lord has called us to in this place. James tells us to visit the widow and the orphan in their affliction. Psalms tells us that he is the father of the fatherless. And Christ himself has said, "You have done for the least of these, you have done for me." Our calling is the broken, the lost, those in need of the great physician. Most of these children never step foot in a church other than this sanctuary Monday through Friday, where they are trained and taught to love and honor and worship our Lord. As children come and go through these doors of our school, it is my personal prayer that they leave with their names written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Our goal here at New Hope Christian School is to know God and to make God known to the children and families that he sends to us. Knowing their letters, numbers, and how to write their name is secondary in importance to the real reason we are here serving these children day in and day out. We constantly pray that the foundations of Christ that they have learned here will prove to be fruitful for their entire lifetime. But as we put the Lord first, we see great academic achievement here. Each year, our kindergarten to 8th grade students take a national standardized test. And these children, with all of the difficulties that they are facing, generally score in the top 10% nationally. I truly believe if we are going to impact the institution of family, impact our community, impact our country, and impact our world for Christ's sake, revival is going to come through the next generation that we are training to love the Lord, their God, with all their heart, with all their mind, with all their soul, and all their strength. I want you to hear from a member of this congregation who experienced the life-transforming gospel of Jesus Christ here through the school's ministry. I want you to really understand and see the fruit of this ministry here in your midst and the impact that it has had on the life of a man, a family, and a church. I would like to invite Mr. Clayton Andrews to come and share his experience of being drawn by the Lord with you.
Okay. We all know. It's hard for me to listen to the history and the story of this school without being so grateful to the faithful men and women who have heeded the call to minister to the least of these. I'm going to share with you not all the details, but some of the details of my own testimony. My first daughter was born in 2012. I was not married. I was not a believer. I was raised in a home that was hostile to Christianity. I graduated high school a near Marxist in my political stance. At 3 months old, my daughter was enrolled here without me really having a clue about what God's little creations was. I had driven past this building a countless number of times and never gave it a second glance. After she was old enough to engage and be a part of the programs that they put on here, I sat in the very back pew and listened to the gospel message be presented. When she was 2, and I was now a single parent, it occurred to me, maybe I ought to go and sit on a Sunday morning. And for the first time in my life, in late 2014, I heard the gospel presented by this pastor. And after a year's worth of Sundays and some encouragement, I came to a place where I literally was on my knees, broken exactly in the way the Lord would have me. And I was delivered. Now we know that the Lord does the saving, of course, but he uses his people to do it. And it's these people here that were a part of that process. It was just several years ago when I stepped forward in that next step and gave up the pride and the arrogance of a self-made career and gave my life to him in a professional sense. I'm a part of this middle school team. And it is the greatest pleasure of my life to deliver that gospel message to these young people day in and day out as I teach them through the history of the world, the history of this nation, and the history of God's people. I'm living proof that this ministry is effective, that the mission that has been set before them is a good one. I'm grateful for my congregation. I'm grateful to my pastor. And year after year, we see families and adults coming along in exactly the same way. I don't know how much more time I'm allowed to have. Not much? Okay, she's shaking her head no. You guys know how this works, right?
When they start walking out.
Yeah. Is that the cue? So, some of you already know this. Some of you haven't yet heard this testimony. And there's far more. But you should know that this is an effective ministry. Truly effective. So thank you.
This is just one story. We have been privileged to see many students and parents develop a personal relationship with Jesus Christ as a result of this outreach. We are in a predicament, congregation. We are turning children and families away because we simply do not have the space to serve them. We closed enrollment for summer camp 6 weeks ago. And we are on the verge of closing enrollment for the 2022-2023 school year. You can talk to Miss Aviles before you leave today and ask her how many families she currently has on a waiting list. It's heartbreaking. These are the things that keep me up at night, especially when we consider the alternative. The alternative is that many, if not all, of these kids wind up receiving a public education. An education that is devoid of morality, according to God. An education where God's design for marriage is scoffed at. Where God's design for man and woman is dismantled. Where there's no such thing as absolute truth. And divine creation is taught to be a childish, unintelligent myth. Right here in Broward County, parents are fighting with public schools who are secretly transitioning their children from one gender to the other without their consent or even their knowledge. You may think this is an exaggeration, but I want to briefly share with you a personal experience. Last year in June, I finished my master's degree in marriage and family therapy. Upon graduating, I was required to see clients under supervision to be eligible for licensure in the state of Florida. So I began a relationship with Smith Community Mental Health right here in Broward County. Based on my years of experience with children, they quickly assigned me to what they call the Family Strengthening Unit that serves troubled youth between 12 and 17 years old that have been mandated by the court to attend therapy. One of my first clients was a 16-year-old biological female that attends a public school in Pembroke Pines and identifies as a planet, not a boy, not a girl, but a planet. She was mandated into therapy for severe depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation. When I asked her about her identity, she explained to me that when she was in elementary school, she was first introduced to these ideas in her emotional learning class. And just past this January, I was assigned to a 12-year-old biological female who identifies as transgender. She's attempted suicide twice since December. She's been Baker acted on the psychiatric floor 4 additional times, in addition to the suicide attempts, and articulates that she's severely depressed and lives in a constant state of confusion. She's 12. I see her every Friday afternoon at 1:15 at New River Middle School. Her guidance counselor tells me she just needs her parents to get on board with her transition. When I talked to my preteen about where and when these ideas first developed in her emotional learning class in 3rd grade, today her teachers secretly refer to her as August without her parents' consent or knowledge, and are effectually driving a wedge between this child, her parents, and their family's beliefs and values. It's a very devout Catholic family. The schools in our community even offer a gender closet. It's a place where students can exchange what their parents sent them to school in for attire that more aligns with their gender to wear throughout the school day. The only caveat is that they have to change back into their original clothes before going home, lest their parents find out. To put it simply, I love this quote by Vodi Bakum. He says, "We cannot continue to send our children to Caesar for their education and be surprised when they come home as Romans." This is what is happening in our neighborhood schools. Brothers and sisters, we are in a battle with the father of lies for the hearts, the minds, and the souls of our young people. We have an obligation to train and to teach the next generation to blaze the gates of hell with the truth of the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ. So why all this information this morning? We have an opportunity that I truly believe is somewhat miraculous. It all began with a dozen or more random phone calls on a Thursday from parents who were frantically trying to enroll their children into our school. Their story was the same. My child's school notified me today that tomorrow they are closing their doors permanently. I decided to look up this closing school, just curious as to where it was located. It's 2 miles from here. It was interesting, I thought. After a few conversations with Jessica, I went to the Broward property appraiser's website to determine who owned the property. After some digging around on Sunbiz and the internet, I was able to get a phone number for the owner of the property. I called multiple times, left multiple messages, and never heard anything back. As we contemplated our woes with the multiplex and began to turn our attention back to what in the world we were going to do in August, now 6 classrooms short, Pastor Kirby recommended reaching out to a realtor that he knew personally for help. As the realtor and I sat and discussed rental options in the immediate area, which were few, I mentioned the closing of the school just a few miles away and that I had reached out but had not gotten anyone to return my phone calls. He offered to write them a letter. He stated, "Listen, we probably won't hear anything back, but it can't hurt." Within 24 hours of the letter being sent, our realtor received a response from one of the owners. The property was sitting empty, and he was willing to show it to us. A few of us went over to see the place, and we were truly amazed. This is literally an operational school facility with 22 classrooms in pristine condition, turnkey, if you will, just 2.5 miles from this place. Our second visit consisted of the New Hope elders and all of the team leaders at the school, and the overwhelming consensus was wow. The owners are willing to rent the facility and they're willing to sell it. Our heart is truly to purchase so that we can be sure for years to come that every child the Lord brings here can be ministered to in the way that prayerfully leads them to a personal encounter with a living God. After all, where else are these kids going to get moral education and be taught to love the one who has created them and given himself for their salvation? So what is the obstacle before us? A very big price tag in a very short period of time. Our August 22nd is the first day of school for the next school year, which is just literally about 10 weeks from today. And we have 2 kindergarten classes registered, of which we have 1 classroom for. We have 2 first grade classes registered, to which we currently have 1 classroom for. We have a full 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade that there are no classrooms for. When it comes to price, the owners are asking $6.5 million for this 3-acre property, which consists of 2 school buildings, roughly 10,000 square feet each, including a cafeteria and a brand new playground. We are working with our realtor to see if this is negotiable. When it comes to time, we have to be fully up and running somewhere by August 12th, which is actually the night of orientation, for our kindergarten through 8th grade students. That leaves us literally about 10 weeks to secure a location and have it prepared for the first day of school for over 200 students. We've been in contact with the bank, and we've been moving through the process to see if a loan for this amount is even feasible. And so far, we know that our first mountain to climb will be the down payment, which is going to be in the neighborhood of $1 million. I believe with my whole heart that God has led us to this place. It isn't even listed on the real estate market, and there has been 0 advertisement of its availability. The fact that we even know of it, in my eyes, is a God thing. If we are to move on this opportunity, we're going to need the prayers and the financial support of our congregation and our school community. One thing I know for sure, if God is for us, there will be nothing that will hinder his plans from unfolding. I appreciate your time and your attention and would be delighted to answer any questions that you may have about the things that we've discussed this afternoon. Mr. Rick?
Can I intercede real quick? We didn't switch. We are streaming. So there are people there. So just repeat the questions, if you would.
Okay.
Okay, because we're not shipping back and forth with the cameras like we do.
Go ahead, Rick. They are interested in selling and renting. We have been trying to negotiate both, a lease agreement and also a purchase agreement. They have not been open to that at this point.
Basically, it's kind of a modified rent to own, if you will. They're 2 separate contracts, but it's a lease that would be for a certain amount of time. That's really where we've got an issue as far as that's concerned. But with the ability within a certain amount of time to purchase within that lease. okay? Now, what is not clear, and I honestly don't think with these people that it will take place, is that they're going to give us like 6 to 8 months to put the financing together, that 6 to 8 months would be considered to be part of the down payment. Don't think so. It's a seller's market right now, and they're going to be, we're going to have to negotiate if we're able to get this. So it's kind of a lease to own, but not really, not where the lease goes towards the purchase price. Well, as far as the selling price, yes, there would need to be in times like, or situations like this, we are told that it's going to be about a 20% down payment. So if we're in the $6.5 million market, that's $1.3 million that we're talking about as far as a down payment. Very substantial. There are options that we have as far as that is concerned. But we're still exploring those. You know, it really depends on how anxious they are to move the property, or whether they're just going to sit on it and, rezone it or whatever. Right now, we are we're looking at this property and saying, okay, Lord, did you really dangle this carrot in front of our eyes, and not going to make the way for us to do it. So as Brandy said, if it's His will, we know we'll put it together. The question is, if we go with the lease option, do we still need $1 million? The two would be separate contracts. It would be a lease. Currently, the requested time period is 10 years. That's the way leases go. It would be a lease, and the lease amount is $35,000 a month, okay? Hefty price tag. Of course, we need to state that is we have enough students right now to cover that. We could literally move in day one, and we could cover that with the number of students that we already have that we could put in place. So it's not that we're concerned about that as much as that within a certain period of time, we have to put the financing together. If we don't put the financing together, then the lease stays in place, and it stays a lease. So it's kind of different. They're two different contracts, but they're sort of melded together.
And ultimately, the main reason for the hope to purchase is because we can lease it. We could expand here on our property, and we still don't have space for anything past 6th grade. And right now, today, we serve through 8th grade, and we'll see what the Lord has in store for high school.
Yeah, this is how I find everything out at times like this. Oh, so we're going to do high school now. Oh,
so we'll see what the Lord does.
Let me at least address that to a degree. There are not many non-covenantal Christian schools in Broward County. We were talking with the sister school, Bethany, Rio Vista Community Church, that some of you know, over on US 1. They've maxed out their facility. They go through 8th grade. And they're devastated. We talked to their head of school. He actually came here to speak for us. They're devastated because when they churn their children out, there's no place for them to go. Because you see, none of the other Christian schools will accept them because they're non-covenantal, you see, and they're all covenantal schools. So the parents, if they haven't come to know Christ and professing Christians during that period of time, the rest of the Christian schools will not take them. And so therefore, they're dumped into the public school system because there's no place else for them to go. There's no other Christian school that is going to accept them. So it's like their entire student body is looking for a place to send their 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. With the climate of what Ms. Brandy just explained about the public schools, we feel very confident that the need for quality Christian education in a non-covenantal environment is not something that's going to pass by the wayside. Okay, Brother Bill. The question is, have we looked into any grant money? And the answer is yes, to a degree. To a degree, grants are very slow, labor intensive on the front end, and quite often small amounts. But we actually have received one, so I'll let you talk to that.
Just to give you an idea, for probably 10 or 12 grants that I've written for various different things, which could be from expansion to playground material, we've received one for about $90,000, and it was specified for fine art and athletic or physical education. So out of the 12 that have been written over the last few years, we've been awarded one to the tune of about $90,000.
Have we applied to the DeVos Foundation?
We have not as of yet. Yes. I think our challenge with some of the larger foundations is having a contact person. We did have some fundraiser individuals, one that was a neighbor of Pastor Tony's and one that was a large fundraiser for Westminster came, and Pastor Kirby has had some very in-depth conversations with both of those gentlemen, so maybe you can speak to the process.
Let me put this in sort of a nutshell. The current concept of fundraising for schools is to go out and find yourself a wealthy board, bring them into the school system, turn the operation and the decision-making of the school over to them, and place the fundraising in their hands, which is something we refuse to do. We will never do that. We will not expand if that's what it requires. The school falls under the umbrella of the church, under the spiritual guidance of the church and the elders. So the spiritual decisions that are made as far as the school is concerned come from the elders of this church, which we will maintain. And so therefore, we have been presented with so many ways that we can navigate and circumvent. I mean, let's spin off the school as a separate corporation. That way we don't have to have that particular problem or another. But each one of them throws us face to face with a dilution of what the Lord has called us to do in the first place. And if we ever stop doing what the Lord has called us to do, then why are we doing it? It makes no sense. And if the Lord is going to bless it, He's going to bless it. So we have not made that move. Even though, and it's been kind of interesting, is that every single group that has talked to us about this has said exactly the same thing. This is the way you do it. You enlist your alumni, and you go out and find yourself a wealthy board. So that's the reason we haven't done that, because we feel that it's so important that the biblical authority is in place. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Razan. I'm not talking to that. I've got my own. I don't. The question is, if the school moves over to the new property, will the school still be involved with the finances of this church. The school, the degree to which the school is involved with our finances here in this church is all for shared use of facilities, electricity, water, the various things that we share, and we work out a formula with the school as far as who pays what. As Brandy has said, even if we were able to build the buildings that we have planned here, that's a couple of classrooms through 6th grade. We're already into the middle school, 7th and 8th graders, and we would still not have a place to put them. We also, in order to move the preschool, the child care situation, that's very site-specific. So we can't just pick them up and move them over to the new school. They're going to have to remain here. And so that's going to continue to fund the transition. So long answer to a simple question is no, it will not separate. Just the fact that we're off-site does not separate the school from the church in really any way. It's just going to increase the number of students that we can service.
So for example, we aren't looking to move any of our infant through 4-year-olds. We're looking to stay here and utilize the modulars that we're using right now for kindergarten and 1st grade for the additional preschoolers. Jessica can tell you, if I could give her 10 classrooms for preschool, she would fill it. Am I telling the truth? With 2s and 3-year-olds. So we would remain here for all of our early learning, and we would just be looking to relocate kindergarten to 8th grade or kindergarten to 12th grade, who knows? Just want to make sure it's being recorded, right?
Okay, yes, it's being recorded. Diane, hold on a second. I see you, but let me go ahead and just make a point. And very appropriate with that last comment. When Brandy first kind of slid infants in to the idea of our education, actually I was an opponent of daycare in the sense of people just dumping their children and going off and letting someone else raise them. So I had to be changed in my attitude towards that. And so my questions originally were, well, why do we need to bring infants into this, or the mix, or 1-year-olds or 2-year-olds? Let's just start like everybody else does with 3- and 4-year-olds, and then we'll work our way up. And Brandy explained to me the rationale is that if a parent brings their infant here, or their 1-year-old, then they're going to continue here. You're building a student base literally starting at 6 weeks and allowing us, even if it was only 6th grade, we have 12 years with these kids. And this is the only 12 years that most of our children are going to be exposed to Christ. And so the more time we have, the more exposure that we have, and we are reaping the benefits. Part of the reason that we have so many 2- and 3- and 4-year-olds is because we've been bringing them along all the way through. So the idea now of moving into upper school is possible because of what we've been doing to this point, or what royal we, what they've been doing, what the school has been doing up to this point. Now, Miss Diane.
If we are able to take the other facility, would we then sell the multiplex?
Oh, that's a great question. And by the way, it's Miss Diana. I'm sorry. I know what your name is. No, what has actually decided is that the Avileses and the Andrews are both going to sell their houses and move into the
It's going to be Axe Village.
Yeah. So they've already decided that that's what's going to happen. We don't know. We don't know what we will do if we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And again, we're not going to stop the battle with the powers that be to try to get that open. We're not going to stop the plans that we have had in place for years now to build the other buildings. You know, it keeps kind of expanding. You know, when we got the sixplex, the law actually that got passed that requires us to sprinkle it had not been passed yet. So they passed that. Now, if we sprinkle it, now all of a sudden the water main's not close enough. So now we got to do a fire loop all the way. You know, it exponentially continues to expand every time something new is passed that wasn't part of the original scene. So yes. Well, hello there. Oh, yes, Will.
Are we able to say out of the $1 to $1.3 million that we need for a down payment, how much we have and how much we're looking?
Okay.
How much more?
The question is, of the $1 to $1.3 million that we need as a down payment, how much do we actually have? And I would say, without speaking out of turn, about $250,000, somewhere in that neighborhood, that we could actually put our hands on right now. You need to know that that $600,000 that we have already expended on this expansion has all come from our own revenue. That's for the most part. There have been some donations, but most of that has come out of the schools generating. Not only, I mean, you've seen the revenue. What you haven't seen is the profit. You haven't seen that we've been in the black every year for the last 8 years, I think, all through, maybe even farther back. Every year we have exceeded our revenue and shown a profit in the school. So, you know, we have been collecting money. Everyone continues in the school to suffer is not the right word, but to oh gosh, I am losing words. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Sacrifice towards that end, so that we know that anything we have extra needs to go for expansion, and our teachers are very much on board with this. And there's a lot of sacrificing going on at all levels of this, so that we might have more. Now, there's some other things that we can do, some tax write-off offers for them that we just haven't explored yet. But all in all, if we have to come up with $1 million, we would only have about a quarter of that. Yes, ma'am, Miss Cindy. The comment is that what we really need to do is find some wealthy Christian Reformed donors. You didn't put it in that order, but it was pretty close to what. And actually, yes, we do. We're going to need help to do this, and we haven't gotten to that point. And I want to emphasize, the reason for this meeting is not necessarily a fundraiser. You know, we're not going to ask you to make pledges or do anything. Regardless of what happens, this property is an amazing opportunity for us, but we're not going to do everything that they're asking. You know, we can't. I mean, it's a seller's market. They're asking for some pretty astronomical things. We're just going to go so far, and we're not going to go any farther. The worst thing you can do is to want to buy something so much that you're willing to pay whatever people want, and at the time, especially in a seller's market. So we're going to continue to be good stewards with the amount of money that we have to raise. What we really wanted to do here is exactly what we're doing. What you saw Miss Brandy do with her little presentation, just I hope gives you an idea of how methodical, how complete, how she covers all the bases, and that's the way she runs the school. Is very detailed, very looking at all the angles and thinking it all the way through and doing it the way it should be done. So that's going to continue in every step that we make. Yes, ma'am, Diane. It's currently zoned education, right? It's zoned for what it is. That was the question. What is it currently zoned? It's zoned for education.
It was actually a full operating school until maybe 2.5 months ago. We literally got a stream of phone calls saying, my school is closing. They told us today on a Thursday that tomorrow is the last day of school. So it was an operational charter school up until just a few months ago.
And it's the kind of thing that it looks like they cut the servers out and took them, but literally everything else is there. All the desks, all the chairs, all the lunchroom tables, even the copy machines that they're leasing. Literally everything is still there. It's, as Brandy said, it's turnkey. We can move in with just a little bit of cleaning and rearranging and occupy half of that with 11 classrooms literally within a couple of weeks. Yes, ma'am. Has the realtor given an opinion if it's not a seller's market, if $5 million was a good price? To a degree, that's a moot point, but because it is a seller's market. He feels that $6.5 million is high for it. He feels that that because of the market, people are getting astronomical prices. It is softening a little bit. We're seeing it soften, but he feels that is high. And we actually got a response from them. We gave a letter of intent, and we didn't offer anywhere near $6.5 million. Obviously, I think we were in the fours, and they pretty much responded with almost exactly. They didn't give an inch. Okay, in other words, they didn't get and things like wanting a 7% per year increase in lease and things like that. It's just really, really, really very high as far as what they're willing to do. So not a lot of give on their side at this particular point in time. I would imagine that they're going to have trouble leasing it to a school at that price, but they may be thinking of rezoning, which I wouldn't doubt at all. Yes, Rick. The question is it not listed yet? No, it's still not listed to our knowledge.
No.
It's not listed. It's, again, Brandy found out about it because the phone starts ringing off the hook. What do I do? Where do I send my child? So to our knowledge, they still haven't listed it, which actually the realtor said that's not the best sign in the world because it means that they haven't really decided what they want to do with it, that they may level it and build a 3-story office building, rezone it. It's right, literally, it's on 21st, which is right, just backing up to it are all those big commercial buildings on commercial. One of the colleges, Kaiser College or something that's there.
Right next to Bobby. Her hand has been up a couple times.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Candy, yes. Do we know why the charter school closed its doors? What we heard, and you can verify this, what we heard is that the person who actually put the charter school together got tired of being in the school business and closed it down. That's what we heard, okay? And whether you can do that or not, you see, charter schools are being funded by the government to, at least to a degree, so how does something that's being funded close its doors? It can't necessarily be financial, but what we heard was that they just got tired of operating and closed it down. So, not because it was falling apart. Oh, Joby. The question is, was the person who owns the property the former charter school people or someone else? No, it's a conglomerate, a group of people we met one of the principals who took the elders and the leaders of the school through on the second visit. Real nice guy. We prayed at the end of our meeting. I asked him if he was a praying man, and he said yes. And I asked if you'd like to join us in the prayer. And his response was that I'd never miss an opportunity to have a good prayer. So he prayed with us as we prayed there for God's will to be done. That obviously didn't impact the way that he came back, but it is a conglomerate, and according to the realtor, they all have to make a decision, and they're all over the place, so that's why everything takes time. Yes?
My mind doesn't work math as good as I used to. Did I understand it was 20,000 square feet for both buildings? And how much per square foot would that be at? 5 million?
That's a good question. My mind is not that good at math either.
Mr.
Yeah, Mr. Okay,
One of the things that the realtor did tell us, because we did look at price per square foot, in comparison to other leasable properties, price per square foot, and it was comparable.
$300 a square foot. At 6 million. At 6 million. Yeah, okay.
Hey, one more quick question. Sometimes with the lease, you can get a first option to buy or whatever. Did you think about that, or is that kind of something?
Well, I'll be honest with you. We are sort of leaning on our realtor, who is a Christian, an elder at Covenant Presbyterian Church. I've known him for many, many years. He's helped several people here in our congregation, and we're sort of depending on him to help us as far as forming how we go about it. Currently, what they are asking for and what we are giving them is this lease purchase as two separate documents going forward, and we supersede the lease with the purchase if we're able to put the financing together. No, you only get two.
1, 2, or 3 year lease? Would a 3-year lease help build up some more down payment money?
Actually, the question is 1, 2, or 3-year lease. Actually, they're demanding a 10-year lease with a 7% per annum increase. Okay, so I mean we're in a different realm. We actually offered a 5-year lease with a 5-year option for a 5-year extension, and then reevaluating every 2 years after that. And that apparently wasn't acceptable to them. And unless something extraordinary happens, obviously I'm being recorded, so I don't want to make any promises, but I would not feel right at this time entering the church into a 10-year lease at 7% increase. Do the math. That's $50,000 a month, or at least over that. So unless we can negotiate that, that might be a deal stopper, you know. Well, again, they are in. I don't know that they're. We're not in. We don't seem to be in a negotiating type of situation right now. Okay, I saw some other hands, some other questions. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Cheryl.
So are there any deadline dates set for when we have to sign the lease or when we have to put up
The question is, are there any deadline dates set? Well, as Brandy said, we have to have some place that we can get 6 classrooms by August 22nd, which means that unless we're looking at something that requires very little actual increase by the middle of July, we're sunk. We were able to move in next door at the last moment because they fixed those classrooms up for us, or they fixed them up, and we were able to move in. We just had to move the desk, and of course I didn't do any of the moving, so I can say it was easy. But that was at the end of it. Now, as far as so those requirements time-wise are our own, just to get ready by the school year. The requirements as far as coming up with the financing would be part of whatever the agreement is, and I think that they pretty much said the end of this year. Yeah, by the end of the year, December 2022, we would need to have the financing, or we lose the option to actually purchase it. We would continue in the lease. And that actually is the reason that I would be very slow to sign a 10-year lease, because then we're locked in for 10 years at whatever increase rate. And I'm not sure that's the right stewardship decision.
And Lewis, also, we have not found any commercial property that will lease to us for less than 5 years. Even office space that we've tried to look at, and can we maybe get it zoned for educational use? No commercial property is willing to even talk to us unless we're willing to go in for 5 years. So that's been a challenge as well.
Right. I see you, Cheryl. And we also actually made a meeting with Pastor Doug and Jason, who's the head of school at Calvary, and just put a little bug in their ear that, hey, you guys decide you want to sell that building across the way, talk to us. But they have their own plans. But we did impress upon them how much the desperate situation we're in. The last thing in the world we want to do is, now that we've started a middle school and we have these kids, the last thing in the world we want to do is turn them away and send them to the public schools. That would break our hearts. So that's why we're really in a situation we need as a congregation to be praying for this. Cheryl.
So what's always helpful for me as I'm praying is if you and Ms. Brandy can provide us in an email specifically what you need us to pray for.
Okay, that's a good point. Cheryl said that Ms. Brandy will provide you in an email. We too can play this game. Ms. Brandy will provide in an email specifically exactly what we need to pray for. That's a great idea and something we could send out in our MailChimp prayer request. Yes. Yes. Ms. Pat.
Back in the 70s, when I first started teaching school in Memphis, they had this big idea that we would have open classrooms and all the math and science would all be together. And you know what we ended up having was these walls on wheels that I'm visualizing right here and right over there. And you've got 3 classrooms.
Miss Pat is taking us back in time and offering an alternate solution where we divide up the sanctuary and make it classrooms. And by the way, this is exactly what we do in Haiti, because there's one big church and that becomes a classroom. The only problem with that is starting about 10 o'clock and between 10 and 2, this is the nap room for our little ones. And so their little mats are all around here and they're fast asleep. We utilize it. So we're already using this space. And maybe we can make bunk beds or, stick them behind maybe, who knows what we can do. But right now, and trust me, we've thought of that. We've thought about, dividing up the sanctuary. Not an easy solution. And that's the reason we have just been constantly and continually putting it before the Lord and just asking for Him to bring the solution out. Steve, you had a question.
Have you figured
The question is, have we come to a point where we can talk about how much lease we can afford? Let me just give you some rough figures that Brandy gave me, just an idea. We have 4 classrooms over at Calvary that are not charging us, or 3 classrooms. Is it 3 classrooms? 4 grades are meeting over there. The revenue from that is going to be roughly $240,000 a year, somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 a month. Okay, and that's where we have right this minute. Now, we are turning all the way from 2-year-old and 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds away. We have these long waiting lists. So if we move these guys over there, occupy only 11 classrooms, just the increase here in preschool students would pay for the entire thing there. Okay, so it's the dollars and cents wise, the lease works. What doesn't work about the lease right now is the 7% increase per year and the 10-year length of it. But $35,000 for the lease, we can't afford that. And I've told Brandy on several occasions while we're talking about this, we're really not talking dollars and cents here. We're talking about students' lives and spiritual well-being. And can we put we're going to haggle over this or that? Really, no, we shouldn't. But by the same token, we have to be good stewards with the money that we've been given. So, yes, ma'am, Ms. Donna.
I've heard that you said that you've expanded our ability to offer that we're going up to 7th, 8th grade. And I'm wondering why we would expand that when we don't have the capacity to do it. And did you have another option in mind before this?
Yeah. The question is why are we expanding into the 7th and 8th grades, into middle school, and do we have another option that was in mind? Well, actually, we have 2 options. We have the option of the actual physical buildings that we have been in the process now for years in trying to bring about to actually build on this property, which would take care of some of those classrooms. We also had the sixplex, which we completely thought when we purchased that. We thought entirely that that would be full of students now. And we would be using that, and we wouldn't have the immediate need that we have. Another reason, Donna, and I don't know if I repeated the question. Another reason is that every single time we come to, and it's exactly what Brandy's kind of slipping in this conversation, every time we come to the prospect of turning our kids, we're talking about our kids now. We're talking about children we've invested in. Some of these children have been here since they were infants. And we're talking about turning them over to the public school and what we're seeing going on in that public school. That's our emphasis. That's the reason we're doing what we're doing. And that's the only reason we would consider expanding to the upper grades is where the only place they can go is so horrible. You know, it's not right. It's not that they can go to another Christian school. They can't because of the nature of the students and the parents that we take. And so it's the options are just not good ones. And so that's the reason we want to, as long as we can do it, as long as the Lord provides, and He has. 11th hour and 59 minutes, literally. But He has provided. And so we're continuing that He will provide for us so we can continue. Yes, Rick.
So, just to clarify, so now these students that are at Calvary, Calvary's done. So right now you have no place for them?
The question is that our students, our middle school students that are meeting in the gym at Calvary, we have no place for them. The answer is yes, because Calvary is also space challenged, and they have been very gracious. They didn't charge us. They didn't charge us rent for those rooms. I mean, they have been very gracious, and actually willing to help us and willing to, to help Christian education in general. So they've gone above and beyond. Of course, a good part of their baseball field is on our property, and we let them do it. So it's a trade-off, But nonetheless, they're going to use those rooms now, and so we have no place for these middle school students. We can't. We have no place to put them unless we can do Monday, tomorrow. Wayne has given us, our realtor has given us a new list of listings that are around here. We're not talking about schools, we're talking about office complexes, we're talking about storefronts, we're talking about any place we can find a space. They're all going to be 5-year leases, and they're all going to require some amount of renovation in order to be able to utilize them. But we're probably going to make our final, this is what we're willing to do as far as the school over there tomorrow, and then continue on and keep looking. Because we're between a rock and a hard place as far as those kids are concerned. Yes, ma'am, Miss Diana. The question is, if we were able to come up with a down payment, would our monthly payment on the mortgage be workable? And the answer is yes. It would actually be a little less than the $35,000 a month. And also, depending on how we organize the loan, typically it would be a balloon of some sort. Maybe they don't go out. I forget how long they said they would go out, but 10 years with a balloon or something of that nature. So yes, very affordable. As far as can we afford to borrow the money if they'll give it to us? Absolutely. Are we worried that we would take on something that we eventually would not be able to pay? Very little worry there. Just given the situation of the world around us, the community, the school system, the response, the number of people we have on waiting lists now, we're very confident that we're going to be able to pay the monthly amount on whatever it is. So, yes, sir, Mr. Rick. I have no idea. I don't know that. I'll be honest with you. What we are probably going to do is we're probably going to offer them somewhere in the neighborhood of $5.5 million with a $1 million tax credit. Okay, which again might work in their favor. That's Calvary Chapel did that when they bought that big huge property. They bounced back a tax donation, tax credit for them, for the sellers, which, depending on whatever their situation is, might be quite attractive to them. So, we have some leeway. We can offer $6.5 million, but $1 million of that is going to be, a tax write-off for them.
They've come down to 6.3.
Yeah. So, not a lot of leeway. Not a lot of leeway. Well, great questions. Any more? I think that. Oh yeah, yes, ma'am, Miss Cindy. The question is where does the money, the revenue actually come from? It is from tuition. Some of our students, a good number of our students are actually on, and Brandy and the staff put a lot of effort into helping them arrange scholarships with various scholarships, Step Up, or some of the different things. But we're not funded at all by any state government, unless it's like it used to be Family Central. You could talk to that better than I could.
So there are different types of scholarships, or there's different types of money that schools receive. Federal funds means you have to comply with all of the federal mandates when it comes to Title X, when it comes to gender identification, when it comes to all of those things. So we refuse to accept any federal funds because that would require us to compromise our values and our beliefs, and we're not willing to do that. The state of Florida has quite a few parent choice scholarships available, where they are tax credit scholarships that the state of Florida awards. We do accept those scholarships because they don't require us to sign anything that would compromise our beliefs. But all of the revenue that's generated is from tuition income.
One of the things that we did years ago was to wean ourselves away from any dependency on government agencies. And the ones that we have left, in all the years that I've been here, I think there's only been one objection. I don't know how they found it, but in one of the coloring books, there was a picture of David holding a bloody head of Goliath in his hand, and they didn't like that. And I can understand why. I don't know how that got in there in the first place, but nonetheless, we have been insistent all the way through this that we don't, to expedite things, we don't give up having the line of authority that the Lord has put in place remain in place. Okay, very, very good. I hope that this has been informative for you. At this particular point in time, what we need and desperately need from our congregation is prayer support, that you're praying constantly and fervently, that God will provide us a solution. We are heartbroken at even the concept of turning these children who have been with us for so many years away, and we will do anything that we can do to try and find that temporary situation so that we can continue to work with them. And by the way, our families, our parents are so loyal. They have a lot. To answer your question, part of the reason of our expansion is they're begging us to continue to expand because they've got no place to take their children and they just want to leave them here. So. And so if we have to go find a storefront someplace or an office building and change it, they'll come with us. They will, because it means that much to them. Okay, why don't you guys have been very, very attentive, and most of you have stayed the distance, so you all get gold stars as you leave for that. But let me pray and ask the Lord's blessing, and we'll just go from here, and as Cheryl asked, we will send out some detailed information as we have it. Okay, Father, I thank you for this body. I thank you for this group. I thank you for the calling that you put before us, and we certainly, in our wisdom, would have liked for you to have laid the road down a little easier for us, that you had. You didn't make us walk so much in faith that you kind of revealed to us what's around the corner, but then you keep training us. And every time you do something like this, we leave it in your hands, and you test our faith, but then you always show us your glory in the end. And we pray that that is what will happen. I pray that you will impress upon the hearts of every one of our congregation that at this particular point in time we need prayers. And then when it comes around to the fact of having to start raising some money, that they will consider that you'll place it on their heart, that need. And we just give you the glory for that in Christ's name. Amen. Thank you all, and God bless you.